Last weekend, the Vancouver Whitecaps dropped a 2-1 decision away to FC Dallas, keeping the Western Conference MLS playoff race tighter than ever. This week, they're heading down to Portland to face their arch rivals, the Timbers. On the line with us is our good friend Marc Weber. Marc, how you doing?
Patrick, morning.
Marc, this weekend, I think a lot of us are focusing in on the midfield. This midfield battle is going to be what it's all about. What's going to be the difference in the end in terms of supremacy in the middle of the park?
Yeah, it's always a great battle when these two teams meet. You've got Matías Laba on Vancouver's side. You've got Diego Chara on Portland's side. Very similar type players, 1 and 2 in MLS in tackles. Laba 1, Chara 2. Nobody even close to them in the number 3 spot. And then you've got two of the most creative attacking midfielders in MLS in Diego Valeri for Portland and Pedro Morales for Vancouver. So you could say those two are going to cancel each other out, and then it's left to Will Johnson and Russell Teibert maybe to be the X factor, who can tip the balance. So a big game for Teibert, I think. Also, Vancouver's shifted to the diamond, so they're going to have one less guy in the middle of the park if Portland has their five in midfield as usual. So perhaps an interesting numbers game there as well. Possession always really, really important in these games. We saw in the Vancouver game, Portland's midfield was winning that battle. Their fullbacks were able to get forward and really punished Vancouver, especially Albus Powell on the right side of on the wing there. So he scored the opening goal. So possession huge, and it's going to be down to Laba and Morales really to come up with a big game, and I think Teibert to be that X factor for Vancouver.
The other thing we talk about in Portland is the atmosphere of the stadium. What do the players say about that?
They love it. I think home or away, I think, Portland struggled at home a little bit this year. Their record isn't that impressive. I think visiting teams love going there. It is a tough place to play, but it's an easy one to get up for. Fantastic atmosphere there. I mean, my favorite atmosphere in MLS on the road. Kansas City is also pretty exceptional, but there's just something about Portland, the anthem, the hair the hair stands up on the back of your neck, the goosebumps, all that stuff. So, maybe for a young player, a bit intimidating, but I think any player just loves these types of games. And you saw with Vancouver's 4-3 win down there earlier this year, June 1st. I think this is a team that's not intimidated by it, that can rise to that occasion.
The key guy in that 4-3 win was Eric Hurtado, who is from the Portland area. And he is going to be a key man, I think, expected this weekend. Also, we're looking at Darren Maddox again. These strikers closing out the season are going to be the big issue, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, once Vancouver stood pat on deadline day on Monday, which wasn't shocking, but I think a lot of fans had really hoped for something, even a stopgap measure for the end of the season. It's not come. So, Maddox, Hurtado, Mane, same guys we've been talking about all year. Maybe Salgado, Sebastian Fernandez maybe doesn't get mentioned enough. He's got to get going as well. Another guy who hasn't scored much this year, just 3 goals on the season. So they need at least one of them to get going. I think the way Fernandez and Hurtado have played the last couple of games, there's some encouraging signs there, and that's probably their best hope. I think Maddox, the miss in Dallas in that first half was just so groan-inducing. It just felt like his last opportunity. That can change. It always feels like the end, but for now, I think it's Hurtado's role to run with alongside Fernandez, especially after scoring against Dallas. And a guy, like you say, he's from Beaverton, grew up in Beaverton, loves playing in Portland, scored there last time. So he's going to have some good feelings going into this one, and probably represents their best hope for a goal outside of Kendall Waston off a header.
And then last thing here, Marc, this is a huge playoff implications game. Going into the last series of the season, shall we say, who's going to come out on top, you think?
Well, you've got to say Portland's got a slight edge, maybe just because this game's at home and it could be a swing game. But their schedules down the stretch are pretty even. The Timbers also have San Jose twice more. Caps still have to play Dallas, Seattle, Salt Lake. So to me, the Timbers have the edge when you just look at the schedule. But if Vancouver can somehow pull this game out right away, that completely flips, and it's Vancouver's spot to lose, absolutely. So it's a huge game, and it's an interesting kind of one from the coach's perspective too, because as much as Vancouver could really use the win to solidify that spot, they can't afford to lose this game either. So I don't think they'll be cautious, but a tie is not the end of the world. You know, I really think a win solidifies their spot a lot more, but they can't afford to lose it. So it's going to be very interesting, you know, tactically and sort of strategy-wise, how they go about it if they get a lead, especially, you know, do they sit on it? Do they go for a second? So I think they just love a lead for once. They haven't had that enough this year, and you know, that would be step one.
All right, Marc, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks.